I'm excited to have on our podcast today Ryan McGarva, a former Formula One pit crew member and mechanic. Ryan has recently been part of the Mercedes AMG F1 pit crew and crew for Lewis Hamilton. He is an expert in the implementation of teamwork. So, why would somebody who studies leadership excellence speak with somebody who is a pit crew professional? Well, when I spoke with my senior leaders about how to create collaborative environments, one of the key components that they told me about is that they want to improve their ability to do role setting. Now, to me, that means determining which tasks need to get accomplished, how they're going to be done, who's going to be doing the task, when are they going to be doing the task, and what resources are going to be needed, and where are those resources going to be needed. So it's quite a complex phenomenon, role setting. And we don't see a lot in the literature about role setting, not like goal setting at least. And so here we are today, and we're going to be discussing with Ryan, who's an expert at pit crews and role setting. Ryan, when I first saw what human beings can do when in a pit stop, I was absolutely amazed. It's absolutely miraculous that you can do things in millisecond timing. Can you share with us a little bit about what it's like to be in the pit, and how you create such great teamwork?
Yeah, I mean, that was my favorite part of the job, to be honest. It was a lot of people think it was like a really stressful environment, but actually, I used to love it. That was the most exciting part of the job. Um, it was the part where you felt like you had you were making a direct difference to what was happening. So yeah, that was my favorite part of the job, basically.
That's great. So how do leaders of the pit crew determine who is going to be doing what role?
So basically, everyone in the pit crew had a very sort of clearly defined role to start with. Normally, sort of in the winter time, we'd have done a lot of practice. People can try out in different roles if they want. If there's a particular job that they want to try, they'll let people try out. We use a lot of data analysis in the pit stop, so the car's fitted with lots of sensors. The pit equipment's fitted with lots of sensors. So after every pit stop practice, we would get reports, so there'd be feedback, and we could analyse who was good at which jobs. You could try and improve each part of the pit stop. So yeah, we sort of basically got to the point where we would find the person who was best suited for each role, and then you would try and sort of equalize it as well. So you didn't want to have one fast corner. You wanted to try and make the pit stop overall as quick as possible. So yeah, we used to use the data quite a lot. And then also like the procedures. So like the way that we would be called out to the pit lane, the way that you would run out and pick up your equipment, all the checks that you would do before the car even arrives in the pit lane, all of those things were like standard procedure, if you know what I mean. So everyone got into the way of doing the same thing over and over.
So about how often are you practicing or training for the
So
role?
yeah, so it varies massively. In the winter time, we would have been when we were at the factory. We would practice almost every day, basically. Um, and then once the season starts, you tend to be going from race to race. So you would do it probably every day once you were at the circuit. So we would normally start once the car's built, obviously. So from like a Thursday onwards, you would be doing probably 50 practice pit stops every single day. And then you'd also try and do live pit stops during the sessions as well. So that's as much for the drivers as it is for the pit crew, because they need to practice like stopping on the marks, getting in the pit box. Like they would analyze all sorts of things, like where the drivers were stopping, if they were stopping long or if they were stopping slightly to the left. They would analyze that all on cameras, and they would give us that feedback. So when it came to the race, you actually were preempting what was going to happen. You sort of knew that they were always stopping long.
You mentioned the factory. What is that?
So the factory is like our sort of home base, basically. So like where the team are based. So in the European season, we would come back to the factory in between most of the races. And then once you start the flyaway season, the all the equipment tends to go just from track to track. So the mechanics and the pit crew wouldn't come back to the factory very often.
I see. Well, certainly the evidence-based approach to training is a fascinating one. Um, are there surprises that come out of the data? Are there things that don't go as planned?
We used to practice for all sorts of scenarios, things like, as I say, punctures, broken front wings, things like that. So everyone knew how to just step into react to that, if you know what I mean. So there was a plan for things that might not happen very often.
You're not only planning for the role that you anticipate, but
Exactly, yeah.
you're planning for things that happen very rarely, but they do happen.
Exactly, yeah. So it was we would always try and have like a there was obviously the plan A, so it was a bit like in strategy. So in strategy, they're trying to plan for the quickest way to the end of the race, how many pit stops they're going to do, what the ideal strategy would be, but then they also come up with a plan B, a plan C, what's going to happen if it rains, what's going to happen if there's a safety car, and it's the same in the pit stops. You're always trying to plan for every eventuality so that when it comes to it, you don't have to think in the sort of high pressure moment.
Right. Have how do you handle mistakes when people know what they're supposed to do, but it just doesn't happen?
Well, certainly when I was at Mercedes, we sort of had a very open and honest culture. It was a very like no blame culture. Um, so I think people knew that they weren't going to be blamed if it went wrong. Like if something went wrong, they tended to sort of blame the process or blame the equipment. We'd look at why it went wrong, and then they'd put something in place to make sure that that didn't happen again. So the actual person generally was not at fault. Like if someone was able to, if something happened or something went wrong, generally there was some procedure or some equipment change that could be put in place that would stop that from happening again. Um, and that's applied to not just the pit stops, but like the way that we worked on the cars as well. So, like from a mechanical point of view, if we had a failure or something like that, we used to have like a fault system that we would report anything that failed or anything that was close to failure, near misses, things like that. And then they would be prioritized and they'd come up with some sort of solution to make sure that that couldn't happen again. So they were very, very good at reacting to failures, basically.
Yeah,
And
it
so
sounds like you have a great culture for that too. How is that inspired? How do you go about making sure that people do speak up when there's something that almost happened?
so I think like with that the no blame thing where people feel like they have the confidence to speak up. They don't feel like they're going to be sacked if they say, "Oh, this nearly went wrong today." So I think giving people confidence to speak up. I think when people are empowered in their role as well, they they're passionate about wanting to make it better, so they want to improve things, so they're coming up with ideas. So I think having a an environment where your ideas are welcomed, people are constantly trying to improve things and move forward.
That's fantastic. Is that something that happens every day, or do you have special meetings for brainstorming on improvements?
Um, I mean, ideas are always welcome at any point, really. But yeah, they do have meetings after like debriefs and things like that. So on different levels. So say after every pit stop practice, we would have had a like a pit stop report. So you could have a quick look at how your corner times were compared to the other corners. You could look at all the different areas of the pit stops. There was lots of different things in that you could look at, and then also we would have like a full sort of team catch up almost. So generally before the next race, so you would sort of review what happened at the previous race. If anybody had any issues or any ideas, you could put them out in front of everyone. And then discuss the plan for the following weekend. Generally, if something had happened the previous weekend, they would tell you what the changes were in place or what we were going to do to make sure that didn't happen. So yeah, there was a lot of meetings like that basically that sort of tried to keep things moving forward.
Mm. Well, one of the things that can go wrong when you're working with that speed and machinery is people can get injured. How do you go about making sure that people don't get injured and that it's a safe environment?
Well, obviously, sort of comes back to the practice thing again. We used to practice all the time, so everyone had a very clear idea of their role. They knew what they needed to do. Um, we also did a lot of fitness training, so mainly in the winter time, we do a lot of fitness, a lot of preparation, a lot of fitness work to get yourself fit and healthy for the season. And then, to be honest, once the season started, because it was quite a grueling schedule, you weren't doing so much training. It was more just about trying to minimize injuries and things like that. You're just keeping yourself sort of ticking over almost. Um, Everybody just knowing their role and knowing what to do. Like my role in the pit stop was the right rear wheel gun. So you were sort of down on your knees in the pit lane, and the car would swing in from the fast lane of the pit lane and be like literally centimeters away from your knees. So you were putting quite a lot of trust in the driver not to crash into you, basically. But I think you knew that everyone that you were working with was sort of the best suited person for their job, if you know what I mean. So you trusted the people that you worked with.
That's interesting. Is there anything that they did to help build more trust? Any team building techniques or ways of creating more cohesion with the team?
We did go and do team building events and those types of things at the start of the year. Again, once you get into the season, there's not really time to do those types of things. Um, the people that you're socializing with them, you're working with them all day, quite long hours, so you get to know everyone very well. So I think like the trust thing just comes from experience of working together, if you know what I mean. Like the longer you work together, you more you understand what people are like. Um, you know that the rest of the crew is the best suited person for that job, if you know what I mean. Um, so yeah, I think trust just is like in any relationship, trust something that comes with time. The more you work with the people, the more that builds.
Excellent. Can you tell us about a time when something didn't go as expected, and how did the crew respond?
So it could, for example, you have a puncture on lap one. There was a lot of things that were sort of pre-planned in there. So yeah, you might think, okay, so you've got turn one at the start of a race, you have an accident, you get a puncture. The engineer has to decide. Yeah, the engineer has to decide which tires they're going to fit next. They have to tell the pit crew that they have to get those tires out in the pit lane ready. You've got, I don't know, maybe a minute before the car comes back into the pit lane. So there's a lot of decisions that have to happen, a lot of communication that has to happen. But actually, all of those things would have been pre-decided before the race. So things like the engineers will already have decided what the bailout tire set is. They'll know what the next set of tires is. Those tires will be prepared in the garage. The pit crew already know as soon as they see a safety car, everyone's up ready at the edge of the garage, ready to run out into the pit lane. So they're already standing by. Things like there will be a front wing adjust that happens for the next compound of tyre. All of those things are already predetermined. So that all of that has happened with no communication, if you know what I mean. So again, it's sort of coming back to the preparation, because that would be quite a stress. If none of those things had been decided, that would be quite a stressful situation, and also there's a big time constraint there.
Right. Yeah, that does make it much more stressful. Um, so when you are under a lot of pressure or stress, how do the members go about handling stress?
I think, well, I keep coming back to this preparation thing, but knowing that you know how to do the job, like everyone knows what they're doing, if you know what I mean. So there isn't, you just obviously it is still a stressful, like it's still a stressful environment, but in your head, you know that you're the best person for that job, if you know what I mean, and your teammates around you, they know what they're doing. You've got that experience together of knowing that everyone is the best suited person for that job. And then you start as you get more experienced, you know that you can do it. You've done it. 20 times before. So you know um it's just a case of repeating what you've done before. I think the most stressful pit stop that I ever was involved in was in the 2021 Abu Dhabi sort of decider. Basically, it was quite a famous showdown. It was like a title decider. They went into the last race on equal points. Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, um, and basically we were in the lead. Basically, if you won the race, you won the championship. So there was hundreds of millions of pounds riding on this showdown, basically. So it got to the point where we were in the lead of the race. Red Bull had pitted. They fitted their new tires. And we were basically just covering off their strategy by pitting the next lap. So we knew we were coming in. There was one pit stop we had to do. Providing we did that pit stop well, we were going to win the championship. And I remember running out to do that pit stop, and it was like that was the most stressed probably that I've ever been. But in the back of your head, you knew it was just the same as you'd done every other time before. So you just had to take a deep breath, focus. You knew you were surrounded by all of your teammates who were in exactly the same situation. So yeah, it was good. I remember coming back in after that, and we did a good job. Everybody was fist pumping each other in the garage and like happy. And at that point, we thought we were going to win the championship, but didn't actually turn out that way.
So it sounds like the practice really is the core of
Yeah,
keeping everyone calm, having the right mindset, building the
yeah,
trust, and really the core of the collaboration.
yeah.
What do you do in the practice sessions that you feel makes it the most impactful?
But well, basically, just you're repeating the action that you do, if you know what I mean. So it becomes like muscle memory almost. So you're not actually like when you run out to do the pit stop, you're not actually thinking about what you're doing, if you know what I mean, which sounds a bit odd maybe, but it just becomes it's like breathing. You don't think about it. You do the action without thinking, if you know what I mean. The things that you think about are all the little small things before that. It's like I used to run out to the pit box. I'd pick up my gun. I used to check that the shuttle the direction of the gun was going the right way. I used to check that the man who was going to put the wheel on had the correct tire. Make sure it was facing the right direction. Sounds silly, but they come out in blankets. So when you unwrap it, it's very easy for the wheel to be the wrong way around. So checking things like that, and then like as the car's coming down the pit lane, you're looking for the ID on the car to make sure you've got the correct driver. So those are the kind of things that you're thinking about. But then when it gets to the actual pit stop, that just it happens. The car arrives and you do the thing that you've practiced so many thousands of times before. Um, yeah, you don't think at that point.
That's wonderful. Now, there are certain roles that probably have greater status than other roles, simply because of they're a very visible task, or because it's something that everybody else depends on, like the jack. If the jack doesn't go up, nobody else can function. So there are probably certain roles that have higher status. And how does the team balance that with that team spirit, that team cohesion?
I think you're I think you're right in that there is probably a bit of a status thing on some of the roles, but actually I think everyone realizes that even with the smallest part if the smallest part of the pit stop doesn't happen, um, the pit stop will not work, if you know what I mean. Like everyone needs to perform. It doesn't matter how small a job it is. Every single part of that stop has to happen, otherwise it won't work. So yeah, like there's people who are like the front jack man. He's probably always on TV. He's the guy if the car runs long that you see getting hit out of the way, like things like that. But every single person in that pit stop needs to do their job, otherwise it won't happen. It's the same with building the car. It doesn't matter what job you do in the garage. It doesn't matter how senior you are. The most junior person in that garage, if they mess up their job, that car will retire or there will be an issue with the car. So everyone can make the whole thing fall down, if you know what I mean. Everyone has to do particular role well.
So are there issues with prima donnas on a pit crew?
I think in F1, like everyone's very competitive. Everyone wants to be the fastest corner. Everyone wants to be the best at their job. So like you sort of even within your own team, you become little teams, if you know what I mean. So like I remember our corner, we like this. So there's three guys on a corner, be someone putting the wheel on, someone taking the wheel off, and I used to do the wheel gun. So like we would want to be faster than the other three corners. So it's a very competitive environment, even though you're within the same team. Like overall, we wanted to be faster than all of the other teams in the pit lane, but even within our own team, we still wanted to be the fastest corner. So it's I enjoyed that because it was competitive, but I wouldn't say necessarily prima donnas.
Now, traditionally, when we think of building a collaborative environment, we think of getting rid of the competition, but it sounds like you built collaboration with the competition.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it was very competitive, even within the garage. Like I think there was obviously boundaries to that. Like even between car crews, so there'd be two cars in a team. So literally on the other side of the garage, you've got the other car crew. Like on a Friday night, we used to fully rebuild the car. You'd have the engine off, the gearbox off, and you were almost racing the crew on the other side because you wanted to get the car built first. You wanted to get up to the patch, and you wanted to be finished first. Everything was always a bit of a race. It was like you were pushing against the other people. Um, so you'd want to be finished first at the end of the day. You wanted to get the engine on first. You wanted to be fired up first. Your corner in the pit stop wanted to be more competitive. So it was always a very competitive environment, but also not to the detriment of the team. Um, like a good example would be if one of the cars crashed in practice, if the other crew was up against it and they weren't going to get the car back out on track in time, the other crew would always come over and help. Like if their car was ready, they would always come over and help. So then the team would gel as one and become like we would always try to help the other crew and make sure that overall the team succeeded, if you know what I mean.
That's fascinating because in corporate America, it can be really hard to get teams to support one another like that. What do you
Yeah.
think was the reason why they were so willing to help one another?
I think, well, you understood their situation, if you know what I mean. Like, you wanted the team as a whole to succeed. So if their car doesn't make it out in practice or doesn't make it out in qualifying, that is going to hurt the team overall. Um, so yeah, I think overall you want the team to succeed. So everyone's everyone's always just trying to make it better and improve things. So if that's helping out the team on the other side of the garage, then generally that happened.
Did you ever work in a pit stop crew that wasn't very effective versus one that was? And what did you see as the major difference between those two experiences?
Well, I wouldn't say that the pit crew necessarily were not effective, but I worked in a team where they had much less budget and the equipment that they were using was not as good. Um, so the
Oh,
overall, like the times that you were doing your pit stops in weren't as good. There was more mistakes. You were also working with probably more junior people. So yeah, I'd say the equipment mainly was different. But I would say that that desire to do a good job was probably always still there, even in the other team. Um, yeah, definitely the equipment side of it was not so good, and that was frustrating when you knew that there was other teams in the pit lane that had better wheel guns or better like automatic systems on their guns, and that was frustrating that you didn't have that. But yeah, I think from an actual crew side, everybody was still trying their best.
are there situations that you can see in corporate America now that you're speaking with corporate America that we could speed things up or make that mindset of constant improvement? What things would you advise corporate leaders on what to do?
Um, there's obviously lots and lots of little things. Like it's all the little things that make a difference, if you know what I mean. So, um, I would say some of the more main the key points probably are like if you empower people, if people are empowered to do their job, like not micromanaged, if people feel like they're making a difference, they have some responsibility, then they'll go the extra mile. Um, I think that you then need to trust those people. Like if you have empowered someone to do a job, you need to trust those people to do their job. Um, that's obviously if you get the best people, if you the better the team you have, obviously it's going to be easier to trust those people to start with. Um, but yeah, I would say from a people point of view, probably just empowering them and giving them confidence to make decisions. That they're not going to lose their job if something goes wrong, because for sure things will go wrong. Like it doesn't matter how well prepared you are or how much you practice, things do go wrong. But I think the thing is how you deal with that, how you analyze what's gone wrong, and then how you stop that from happening again. So put something in place to make sure that that then can't happen again. And to be honest, when things are going wrong, that's how you learn, because if it's all nice, everything's happy and rosy all the time, then you don't ever learn anything. You don't move forward. You don't make progress. It's only when things are going wrong that you can then improve things. So it's like constant improvement. Like the constant improvement thing is probably a big thing in F1, where you're if you stand still, everyone else will leave you behind. Um,
Interesting. So it's almost competitive constant improvement.
yeah.
Interesting.
And I think, well, another thing as well is probably like analyzing so obviously analyzing your own failures, but then analyze your competitors. So like in F1, you're literally next door to your competitor. They are just the next garage to you, and they're all working with roughly the same sort of equipment. They're all working to the same um, parameters that you are. So they're going to have thought of something that you haven't. So you need to see what they're doing and analyze what they're doing as well, because maybe they've thought of something that you haven't. Or equally, if something goes wrong for them, do you have something in place that means that that wouldn't go wrong for you? So like, it's good to analyze yourself, but also look at the competition and see what they're doing. That was a very long answer. I'm sorry, but yeah.
I love it. And get potential ideas of how to improve.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fantastic. One of the other things that I'm hearing you say is that there's a lot of analysis that goes on. It's
yeah.
not just being in the pit stop, but analyzing each time. So every day you're getting feedback on your performance. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah. So we would always analyze. Every day we would get a pit stop report on the actual pit stops themselves. Um, Obviously, you get the direct feedback of like when you do the pit stop, you know if it was a good pit stop or not. Um, we would always go to the computer by the pit stand as soon as the car had left the box, basically, and look at the times for all the corners. Because as I was saying before, we're obviously everyone's very competitive, so they want to see how the corner times have stacked up against each other. So yeah, you get that very direct feedback, and then yeah, like after the weekend, we'd generally discuss things that had gone well or gone badly. Yeah, there was all having the feedback loop was very important. Um, I think the crew you needed to sort of be able to accept criticism, like take it professionally, if you know what I mean, not personally. So if someone told you that like you weren't doing something well or you needed to change what you were doing, like don't get sad about it and take it to heart. It's like you have to sort of take that as a way of improving, if you know what I mean. Like we used to analyze all the like on camera, we would look at the way people were standing and like make suggestions to how they were stepping in to put the wheel on or things like that. Just trying to find the tiniest little improvement in any area that you could. But yeah, just sort of not taking that personally, if you know what I mean. Like everybody is just trying to improve any area that they can.
That's fantastic. So did you find that difficult to learn in the beginning? That ability to just switch from, oh, I did that wrong to, oh, I can improve that.
Um, yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, I've sort of worked in this environment my whole life, really, or since I left school. But yeah, in F1, it does become very, very sort of perfected, if you know what I mean. Like they analyze every single area, whether it's the pit stop or how the car's built or how you set up the car, or even like traveling to the track. Like they'll find little efficiencies in anything that they do to try and improve things. So yeah, I think you kind of get used to that mentality of like someone's not criticizing you as such; it's just trying to improve it. Um,
That's something that I think in corporate America we struggle with. So it's interesting that you were able, that it's just the culture to make that switch from I got it
yeah.
wrong to I have something to improve.
Yeah, I think yeah, people in general life, I think people do take things personally and you don't want to offend people and people are maybe too sort of nice to each other, if you know what I mean. But actually, I think from a professional point of view, when everyone's trying to improve and you're you can take that on board, you can take these suggestions on board. I think it makes for a good environment. Like you can openly say to someone, you're like, it's a very sort of honest environment, if you know what I mean. You can say to someone things that you think are going to make it better, and they can take that on board. Um, and I used to like that. It was a very um, quick way to improve things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a great opportunity. Have you found that you take these same mindsets into your life so that when your girlfriend says they can improve something, you're able to do that?
Yeah, probably, definitely. I don't think you don't switch in and out of it when you go home. I think even now that I don't even work in F1 anymore, but I still sort of live my life very much like how I worked, if you know what I mean. Like I'm a very organized person, a sort of meticulous planner, and I like to have everything organized, if you know what I mean. So yeah, you can't get rid of that. It's maybe
So,
not a good thing.
you had mentioned in an earlier conversation that um, you found things in the real world to be relatively slower. What advice would you give people in the real world of, what gift would you give them from your experiences in the pit stop that you think would improve their world?
I think it's probably the analyzing the failures thing. So when something goes wrong, putting something in place so that that can't happen again. I won't name any names, but I worked at a place after I left F1, and you were seeing things going wrong. You were seeing things happening that um, weren't being stopped, like it wasn't being fixed, if you know what I mean. And you were seeing the same thing happening over and over, and it became very frustrating because in F1 we react to that type of thing very quickly. So anything you very quickly improve if you stop things going, like if whatever goes wrong, if you stop that from happening again, you very quickly get to a pretty high standard. But yeah, when I left and I sort of went to the real world, you'd see things going wrong and mistakes happening and issues, and you saw the same thing happening over and over, and I found it massively frustrating because I wasn't used to that. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest, like quickest way of improving things.
That's excellent. Well, I think you've really gotten at the heart of what makes an effective team, which is analyze your mistakes, um, make sure that you practice and that you know exactly what tasks you're going to be doing, uh, fix the processes, have the resources. All of those things are really key to effective teamwork. We don't always think of them that way, but it sounds like, just through practice and through experience, you've been able to articulate, I think, what could really improve a lot of teams. So thank you for joining us here at the Chief Executive Alliance.
Thank you for having me. It's enjoyed it.